everyone, I'm out here in the woods in northwestern Montana driving this 2022 Nissan Pathfinder. This thing is all new for 2022. The Pathfinder has now been sold over 5 different generations. With the introduction of the 4th generation Pathfinder though, this thing became a 3-row family crossover. Prior to that, it offered some truck-like features, some rugged capability. You might have called it a Toyota 4Runner competitor, but with the introduction of the 4th generation Pathfinder, this thing moved to more of a Toyota Highlander competitor. Anyway though, the 5th generation Pathfinder here builds on that crossover formula. I've driven it about 25 miles now, and I think it's actually pretty good. This thing will seat up to 8. It offers a lot of great active safety features. As you can see, the design is a little bit blockier than the previous generation Pathfinder, and yeah, all around I'm pretty impressed so far. Let's do a tour of this thing outside, inside, and then take it for a drive. So you can see that this thing is employing Nissan's latest design language, which I would describe as blocky but with rounded features. So up front here, you can see a pretty squared off front end, but the hood line slopes pretty gradually into the grille there, so it's rounded off. You've got the V-shaped grille up front. That's pretty familiar. Same with the headlights. You'll see similar designs used in the Rogue and in the facelifted Armada. These are 20-inch wheels riding on Hankook Dynapro HP2 all-season tires. I really like this green exterior. Another design touch is that it says Pathfinder along the rocker panel there. Floating roof line. This thing has a 2-tone exterior, so the top is black while the main body is this deep green color. It's got kind of a bluish undertone, but well, it matches the evergreens around us right now. Moving around back, it says Pathfinder all the way across the tailgate, so if you're following one of these, you'll know what it is. You can see Nissan's updated logo being used there. You can open tailgate with your foot, I think, maybe. There we go. So sometimes it takes a couple of tries. I should mention 2-inch receiver hitch with a 7-pin connector on this one. This is a fully loaded Platinum model, but this thing will tow up to 6,000 pounds. That's pretty impressive. Many of the competitors are limited to 5,000 pounds, so you get an extra 1,000-pound margin out of the Pathfinder. Around back here, some notable things. You'll see there's a little first aid kit. That's fun. 12-volt outlet hook, little tie-down point here. Fairly solid over here. Hook and a tie-down point, and then this is kind of cool. So there is not only underfloor storage, but there's a couple cool elements to it. First of all, the hinge will support itself. So these are just stronger hinges, or they're actual hinges. In most vehicles with this kind of underfloor storage, there's just a board that sits on top, and you have to hold it up to move around back here. But in this case, you can see hands-free, and it stays up. Some dividers in here. This is a cargo net, so this is pretty functional. Moving on, this is as much storage space as you get with the 3rd row in place. And then another thing I should mention, this has an accessory all-weather cargo mat here, so this piece, and then there's 2 pieces on the 3rd row seat backs. Let's fold down these 3rd row seats. So put the headrests down and then use this thing. And the idea with this cargo mat is when the 3rd row is folded, you get full coverage. Put this one down. Pretty easy to put these 3rd row seats down. Yeah, really easy actually. And then to put them back up, you just grab this thing and pull, and then pull that. Really simple, quick and easy to get the 3rd row seats up and down. Power closing hatch, as you can assume. All right, climbing inside, let's take a look at this info sheet. Not quite a window sticker, but you can see this is a 2022 Pathfinder Platinum 4-wheel drive. So fully loaded, as equipped, this thing comes in at $50,290, factoring in that $1,150 destination fee. You've got the Platinum trim. It has the lighting package, so you get the 20-inch wheels, panoramic moonroof, tow hitch with the 6,000-pound towing capacity, and a 7-pin connector. Bose audio, a heads-up display, power tilt telescoping steering wheel. It has a fully digital gauge cluster, all kinds of ports. You get this brown leather, which is nice. Let's turn this thing on. Like I said, 12.3 inch fully digital gauge cluster. Nissan is introducing this new gauge cluster with the Pathfinder. There's also a heads-up display. Here's your infotainment screen. Pretty standard if you've been in any modern Nissan product. I don't think you'll have any issues with this infotainment system, and that's how an infotainment system should be. I really like the blocky design of this dashboard. Nissan's latest design language is quietly pretty good. Everything's kind of chunky. You can see a lot of squared off edges, especially right here. So this air vent is surrounded in a brushed aluminum trim piece, and then you get this leather piece here with some contrast stitching. The door panel feels pretty good. The leather here is pretty plush, pretty soft. Moving down here, this is another, I'm guessing, soft touch vinyl. Once again, Nissan's latest switchgear. It's all very flat and square, which I like. Design is subjective, but you know, I don't think anyone would argue that that's a fairly mature looking set of switchgear there. Along the side, you've got power tailgate, plenty of good active safety features in this thing. It's now got Nissan's ProPilot 360 feature and ProPilot Assist, which combines radar cruise control and lane keep assist to pilot the vehicle down the highway over short distances with minimal driver intervention. We'll leave it at that. Gear selector here is this electronic unit that Nissan is using in a lot of its vehicles. So to go into drive, you just go back. To go into reverse, push that button and go forward, and then to put it into park, press the P there. We'll take a look at the backup camera. So it's fairly high resolution, not the sharpest in the industry, but certainly far from the worst. So you can make out, I've got my backpack and some things there. It looks pretty good, especially considering that we're parked on a very textured surface. You're getting some sticks and some moss and some grass in there. Yeah, pretty good backup camera. Let's wireless charging pad, 12 volt, USB-A and a USB-C port up front there. A couple different driving modes. So it looks like you've got Eco, Sport, in a tow mode. That's good to see. And then moving to the left, Snow, Mud and Rut, and then a sand mode as well. And there's also a hill descent control, which we don't need right now. It says Pathfinder across the top of the center console box there. Inside here, pretty basic, just a center console box, no connectivity ports. Looks like there's a place to put a pen though, and maybe, I don't know, something like a passport. You've got some interesting stitching in the leather there, and as I mentioned, I really like this brown with green color combination. Looks pretty sharp. Overhead, there's a panoramic sunroof. Then the opening portion of the sunroof is this area right here. Yeah, so I really like the driver's seat. Oh, one more thing. There is a storage cubby right here, similar to in the Toyota RAV4, and it's kind of interesting. It slopes downward, but there's a rubber surface in it, so it'll hold anything in place there. Yeah, really convenient. I love the use of this space right here. Not many vehicles do anything with this area, but in the Pathfinder, you get storage there. Another thing they mentioned is that they made sure the water bottle holders in the doors were big enough to hold most water bottles. We'll leave it at that. A lot of door water bottle holders are just a little bit too small, but yeah, you're not gonna have any trouble fitting a bigger water bottle in the door holders in the Pathfinder. I think that covers the front seating area. It's all pretty sharp, gotta say. Let's check out the second and third rows. Okay, now that we're in the second row, you can see that this one has captain's chairs. I'm gonna move this back a little bit. So you get an armrest, rear HVAC controls. Once again, 2 cup holders in the door panel there, and then a big cup holder down there. There are also shades for the rear windows if you've got kids back here and you want to block out the sun a little bit. And then a really clever feature is this center console. It's removable, and the way you remove it is pretty cool actually. So you pull off this panel. That's admittedly a little bit violent. And then you reach in here and there's a little lever and you pull it. And what's neat about this thing is that it's super lightweight. It's not often that I can demonstrate these features with one hand while recording, but In this case, there you go. I'm lifting it up with one hand. And then it's really easy to put back in. I think I can do that. Yeah, I can do that with one hand as well. So, yeah, that's some really good design right there. So I could see, if you're using the third row often, I could see pulling this out and just leaving it in your garage. But if you're not going to be using the third row, you can put it in place here and you get a storage cubby and 2 cup holders. So, yeah, clever design. Let's hop in the third row. So to move the seat forward, well, to fold it down, you use this lever right here. So that's if you wanted to store something. And you can actually slide a 4-foot wide sheet of plywood in this thing. The only thing they mentioned in the presentation, though, is that it can be 4 feet wide. They didn't say anything about length. But yeah, 4 feet of width all the way from the rear up to here. So that's cool. So that is your cargo hauling configuration for the second row. But if you just want to let someone in the third row, there's this electronic release via a button right here. And another thing they mentioned is a car seat can remain in this second row captain's chair while it's slid forward. Third row seat's pretty easy to lift up from here. Pull that up, put the headrests up. There you go. Coming back here. Oh, and once again, another thing they've added is room for 3 across the third row. So the previous generation Pathfinder could only seat 2 back here, meaning that it had a maximum seating capacity of 7 with a bench. Here we've got captain's chairs and we've still got room for 7, or you could get a bench for the second row and increase seating capacity to 8. But now that we're back here, so the second row captain's chairs do move forward and back. You can see this one is a little bit further forward than this one. And here, yeah, I've got plenty of room. Not a ton of room for my feet. That might get a little congested down there. But in terms of knee room, I've got about an index finger worth of space between my knee and the second row seat back. There are 2 USB ports back here. Unfortunately, they're USB-A. But anyway, 2 more cup holders, and then, yeah, not a whole lot else. There's a speaker there. There are air vents up top, and then the middle seat belt is right here up in the ceiling. So here's what it's like with the second row captain's chair slid all the way back. I would not be comfortable here. I really don't fit. So if I were to ride in this third row, we'd have to move the captain's chairs forward just a little bit, but kids would be fine back here. Pretty easy to get out with this electronic release. Oh, and another thing, the doors open really wide too. They were sure to mention that in their presentation earlier as well. Okay, the 2022 Pathfinder. On a little dirt road here just to get out to an asphalt road in this little camping area that we're in. So noteworthy changes to the powertrain of the new Pathfinder. It still uses the same V6 engine of the previous Pathfinder, which was a fine engine, but it replaces the CVT with an actual real 9-speed automatic transmission. I drove it about 25 miles out to this little area that I'm in right now, and the shifts are really smooth. The fact though that there are real shifts is a welcome change. But yeah, with the 9-speed, powertrain's fine. Powertrain's pretty good, no complaints. Another thing they mentioned is that they added a more sophisticated all-wheel drive system. It's not four-wheel drive. One of the weird things that Nissan does is they call it four-wheel drive, which isn't entirely accurate. It's an all-wheel drive system, but they've improved, bear with me, they improved the couplings to be more proactive than reactive. They were reactive in the previous generation Pathfinder, so this one should theoretically be a little bit more prepared for light off-roading than the previous Pathfinder. Okay, we're pulling out onto a highway now. There's 50 miles per hour, so it's fine, but there were shifts. There were actual shifts from the transmission, which I think that's a win in and of itself right there. So it uses the same 3.5 liter V6 from the previous Pathfinder. It makes 284 horsepower and 259 pounds-feet of torque. So it's not exactly a torque monster, but to most people it'll be fine. Fuel economy for this one, this is a Platinum model with 4-wheel drive, will be 20 city, 25 highway, and 22 combined. That's pretty meh. You gain 1 extra MPG in lesser all-wheel drive trim levels, but I assume since the Platinum is a little bit heavier because of the extra features, you lose an MPG. But either way, 22, 23 combined is what you're going to get out of the new Pathfinder. So I think the 9-speed automatic is a win by itself, but I also think they've done a really nice job with this interior. The old Pathfinder just, granted, it came out for, I think, the 2013, 2014 model year. So it was pretty old and it just felt very uninspired inside. That vehicle came out during a time when Nissan was very focused on cost cutting. So there was a lot of evidence of cost cutting throughout the interior. And yeah, so actually when I was driving out to the lake that I was just at, I was thinking to myself, boy, I really wish I'd driven the previous generation Pathfinder, completely forgetting that I did in fact drive one for a week actually, and I made a video on it. So yeah, completely forgot though, which tells you all you really need to know about the previous generation Pathfinder. This thing though, it feels mature. There's a little bit to get excited about with its interior. It's very blocky. It feels sophisticated. Granted, we're in the $50,000 Platinum model. Unfortunately, I'm not getting a chance to drive lesser trim levels today, but with the brown interior, green exterior, and all this blocky design language, not to mention some pretty impressive tech, especially with regard to active safety, new Pathfinder, pretty nice. So let's touch on the Pathfinder's competitors real quick. You've obviously got the Toyota Highlander, the Honda Pilot, the Kia Telluride, the Ford Explorer, the Volkswagen Atlas, the Subaru Ascent, Mazda CX-9, Chevrolet Equinox, Dodge Durango, kind of. You'll have the new Jeep Grand Cherokee L that'll offer 3 rows of seating. So there are plenty of options in this segment. The Pathfinder, I would say, splits the difference between being somewhat stylish and also really, really practical for a family with kids. Honda Pilot leans pretty hard into being a direct minivan replacement. On the opposite end of the spectrum, you've got like the Mazda CX-9, which is pretty upscale, especially in its upper trims. The Pathfinder on that spectrum feels pretty firmly positioned in the middle there. So I think this thing's gonna be great for someone with kids, but it's also somewhat stylish and attractive and offers some nice features for the driver as well. And I think that about wraps up the 2022 Nissan Pathfinder here. This is definitely an important vehicle for Nissan. They're going to sell a lot of these, and I think they've done a pretty good job with this all-new model here. I think a lot of people will buy this thing, and a lot of people will like it. Thanks for watching.